I see so many doctoral researchers who've spent 6 months floundering, but sometimes you need to flounder a bit before you know what you're looking for. And so they will sort of come and ask questions, and I'll show them these resources. And when it's at the right time, it's lovely because you're answering questions for them.
Hello there, I'm Sarah McCluskey, and this is Research Adjacent. Each episode, I talk to amazing research-adjacent professionals about what they do and why it makes a difference. Keep listening to find out why we think the research-adjacent space is where the real magic happens. Hello there and welcome along to episode 21. Today my guest is Alice Cann, an academic librarian at Brunel University, London. Now I have to admit that I didn't know much about this kind of role before we met, so I'm really grateful to Alice for taking the time to enlighten me. Alice works primarily with Brunel Business School, where she helps researchers to find, use and manage their source materials effectively. Despite on paper having done the same job for nearly 20 years, Alice loves that her job is constantly changing because the flow of new information and new technologies never ends. But like so many of my research adjacent guests, Alice really gets her job satisfaction from working with people, and especially those moments when you meet someone at just the right time and you can help them find exactly what they're looking for. Alice also talks about how much she gained from being part of the Research Catalyst Cohort professional development programme for librarians and archivists. Sorry, a bit of a mouthful. At the time of recording, which is early July 2023, the scheme is currently open for new applications, so check the link in the show notes to find out more. But in the meantime, listen on to hear Alice's story. Welcome along, Alice. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be here.
And I wonder if we could begin our conversation by you telling us what it is that you do.
Sure. I'm an academic liaison librarian, so it's a bit of a long title. I'm one of many staff working in my academic library, Brunel. My job involves lots of different elements. There's the liaison, networking, promoting, all the things that I do in the library, but the things that all the different departments in the library do to a department that I work with. So some people work with multiple departments. I am a business librarian. I work particularly with the business school in my university, which has all sorts of different specialisms. As well as the liaison, I'm responsible for collection management, sort of spending the money that we have allocated to us for books and journals and data sets and all sorts of other things in collaboration with a team. And a huge amount of what I do is information literacy. It's teaching people and enabling them to find information, both finding literature, so teaching people about literature searching. And my particular interest is in systematic literature reviews, but there are kind of many other kind of more standard sort of basic things that I teach people about what an academic journal is, how to use books and how to evaluate information to an extent. And as a business librarian, a lot of the researchers and students that I work with are making use of data sets. They're trying to find market research. I'm teaching them how to use specialist resources like Bloomberg, partly from an employability perspective, but also to find the data, secondary data that they need for their research. So I'm working with academic researchers, with doctoral researchers and postdocs and academics, but a lot of my work is also with students, undergraduate students, taught course postgraduate students, MBA students. And a lot of what I'm doing is similar for all levels, but going into more detail for certain people.
Yeah, really interesting. So huge range of different things that you're doing there, it sounds like. Can I just quickly, before I forget, ask, this is just my ignorance here, what is Bloomberg? Is it a particular database or,
I don't know if this is the official definition, but Bloomberg is kind of what stock market traders use to buy and sell stocks and shares. So it's the kind of thing that you will often see in films about sort of Wall Street, or you'll see on the news these kind of multi-monitor screens, sort of black screens with stock market graphs on and currency exchange rates. But you can also get a huge amount of data and analysis about sort of companies and industries and stock markets and all sorts of other things. It's a kind of breadth of information, both historical data going back decades, which often our researchers are wanting large data sets of information, so real-time, really frequent information, so you can see what's going on sort of right now and do analysis on it.
Oh, okay, thank you. There we go. I've learned something there already, which is fantastic. So in terms of this helping your researchers with the information that they need in order to do their research, how much of that is coming from them, or how much is it you keeping an eye on what's current and trying to make sure you've got the right sorts of things available?
Well, people are ask for things that they need or that they want that would benefit them in their research or in the work of the students that they're facilitating. And it's my responsibility to look into the things people are asking for and sort of get costs and look at whether there's funding available, and money is always an issue. Often people are asking for things that we can't get. So they've worked at a different university where they're used to using a particular resource, and we have a similar equivalent resource at our university. There's value in each of these resources, but you can't have everything. And so sometimes my job is saying, I can see that this is great, but have you tried this resource? And sometimes my job is over the long term to push for more funding. And that's the job of my manager and her manager and other people in the library and across the university. But my job is very much teaching people how to use these things rather than doing the research for them.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, well, is working in a librarian kind of role something you always wanted to do? What's been your journey to come into that work?
Well, I've been working in libraries 20 years now. I know as a child, because I like to read lots, people would say, oh, you should be a librarian. And I didn't really know what a librarian involved at that time. And I kind of was a bit against that because I kind of had this inkling, I suppose, that being a librarian isn't just about reading books. There's this stereotype that people think you get to read all day. As a business librarian, I buy books, but I don't get a chance to read them. I don't have time. There's a lot more reading I'd like to do. But I think in the third year of my undergraduate degree, I did one of these sort of tests with the Careers Service, and librarianship was one of the things suggested. And I discovered a list of graduate trainee positions on the CILIP website. CILIP is I think it's now called the Library and Information Association. And so I had a graduate trainee role at the University of Westminster, and then went straight on after that to do a master's degree in, I think it was librarianship and information studies. I should know the name of my own master's degree. And then I had another job in another academic library, and then I've been here at Brunel for many, many years now. So yeah, I think lots of librarians have more of these wiggly or squiggly careers, but I've been this is it for a long time.
Oh, it does sound fairly straightforward. So you must be getting what you need from the role. What is it that you particularly enjoy about the job?
The job involves working with people. There are times when I'm having to give people sort of news they don't want to hear. We can't subscribe to this, or we don't have what you want. Here are some other options. But often I'm the person who researchers book an appointment with and sit down and say, here are all the problems I'm facing, and I'm able to listen and say, well, have you tried this? And they go away feeling quite happy. And I learn from them about the research that they're doing, and it helps me with helping other people in future and with kind of what teaching I do. So it's really enjoyable in that way. And I work with a really lovely team of people and have kind of in a really supportive environment. And it's constantly changing. Like, I've been in the same role for all the time I've been here to an extent, but there's always sort of new technologies, new things, new projects. Like, I got asked to be involved in a major project in the last few years to do with a plagiarism resource, or understanding and avoiding plagiarism resource, which is cross-departmental, lots of people from many departments, academics at all levels, and library staff and other professional services staff. And I was co-leading the working group on that. And a few years ago, the idea of doing that would have been extremely scary, and it still was, but it helped me develop so many skills. And that's still a work in progress with a lot more to do on it, but you get rewarding projects like that. You're not only working in the library.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds really interesting. And it's interesting, so many of the people that I've interviewed for this podcast, that the first thing they talk about, you sort of say about, that they really work with people. And that's your first answer as well, which I think is really interesting. I think that's so often the case with these kind of roles. So you mentioned there a particular project you've been involved with that you've really enjoyed, found really satisfying. Are there other projects or things that you've worked on that you're really proud of that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, there's various things. One thing that's happened in the last year to 18 months is I've been part of a thing called the Research Catalyst Cohort, which was sort of set up with funding from the Arts and Humanities Research Council. It's run by Research Libraries UK and ARMA, which I'm sure you'll know more about than I do, the Association of Research Managers and Administrators. Basically, increasing librarians' involvement in research, sort of developing our knowledge of research funding and enabling us to apply for funded research, either working on a project with other people or as a lead investigator. And so I was attending lots of workshops and had a mentor and had lots of support through that for a year. That's finished now, but they're going to be doing another year of it, which I think they're kind of advertising at the moment and launching at the end of June, and it's going to be running again from September. As a result of that Research Catalyst cohort, I applied for research funding. I still don't know if I've got it, but it feels just a huge achievement just applying. And I learned so much to do with that. I've applied for a professional practice fellowship, which if I got it would give me a year with perhaps a couple of days a week to research. So I've been having sort of lots of queries over many years to do with systematic reviews, often doctoral researchers who are trying to do a systematic review, which is a research method that's developed within sort of medical and health and life sciences that has developed popularity within social sciences research in business. And we get asked in the library, because our specialism is in literature searching, in finding all the research out there to help people with this. And I've been aware there's a huge amount that goes on in systematic reviews, which is a research method that's trying to find all the research out there on a topic and do it in an unbiased way, in a way that it can be replicated by future research. And so there's all sorts of things that I'm aware that me and other librarians can help people with on that. So I'm trying to do research into this, partly doing my own systematic literature review, but also to do primary research, which I've not really done before in a formal way anyway. I've said for years, I really want to learn to use in vivo and various other things. And so I'm hoping to do interviews with doctoral researchers about their experience, and I've got long-term aims of services I'd like to set up. So things I'm proud of particularly are work in progress, really.
Yeah.
Something I'm very excited about.
It's interesting that the focus of this cohort was about encouraging people like yourself to do more research, but it's focusing on developing research that's to make the librarian service better. Yeah.
Yes.
Or
well, it's to do with expanding our capacity, making us aware of what we can do and helping us to explain to others what we can do. Because I think while I love to talk, and lots of librarians like to talk about what we do, there are times when we can not be very boastful about the things that we do, because so often when people are trying to find a journal article, they will do a quick search on Google Scholar. Like, experienced researchers will do this, and which is great, but then this leads to all researchers thinking that that's the only thing you need to do, that's the only thing that's out there. And because we've got this pressure on us, there are times when it feels hard to sell ourselves and make it clear the things that we can do to work to collaborate with people. So it's about developing that in ourselves. But well, that's for me anyway, because the programme, the Research Catalyst Cohort, is also for sort of archivists and other people, anyone who works in a research or academic library. So developing confidence.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Interesting. And with sort of in some of the things you're saying there, that sometimes people like yourself, people who are academic librarians, liaison, archivists, people like that, are not always necessarily very good at explaining how they can help. What do you think would be the advice that you would give to anybody who is maybe coming to do a literature search or something like that? What might a service like yours be able to really help them with that they might not have thought of?
It's partly getting them to think about their key words. So people often have a research topic they want to research, and you get bogged down and somewhat biased by your own initial ideas. So it's getting people to think more around the topic and think about other words that people might use in relevant research. But then also when you're looking at database search results, being on the lookout for other words that you might use, and teaching people about the resources that are available using EBSCO databases, like in my case, Business Source Premier, or search tools like Scopus or Web of Science that have really useful advanced search tools and options for following references and citations. These things aren't right for everyone in every circumstance, but I see so many doctoral researchers who've spent 6 months floundering. Often their supervisors will send them to me earlier, but sometimes you need to flounder a bit before you know what you're looking for. And so they will sort of come and ask questions, and I'll show them these resources. And when it's at the right time, it's lovely because you're answering questions for them.
Yeah, it's catching that right moment, isn't it, between when you've got people who don't know what they don't know, and you maybe can't help them that much. But if they know what they don't know, then that's the point at which you can really step in and point them in the right direction, it sounds like.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, well, it sounds like you've had a fairly straightforward career journey, but I'm sure there have been some hurdles along the way. Are there any particular challenges that you've faced?
I suppose the challenges that I face are the challenges I've always faced. They're ongoing challenges in that there's so much that I want to be involved in and could be involved in, and there's a lot that I don't manage to do. I have a huge amount of support from my employer, and me and my colleagues manage to get a lot done with the time that we have. But I feel like there could be a team of people for each person in my team. And I'm sure this is something that most people in the library feel, and most just people generally. So it sounds flippant, but the challenge I have is time, and sometimes trying to offer all things to all people and then not being always able to follow up on what you want to do. Another challenge is time and money, really. So in the library, we are managing the budget for books, journals, databases, search tools, and other things. And there's always more that we should have. And even when people are bringing in huge amounts of research funding into the university, that money doesn't necessarily translate into us having a bigger budget, or at least not immediately. So there are important things that people really want to have, and it's not easy to get them. In my area, if it's a case of people wanting books, that's no problem. I can usually buy the books they need because those are a one-off expense. Although there are kind of lots of issues with sort of the cost of ebooks, and there's huge projects to do with sort of campaigning about increasing costs of ebooks. But with subscriptions, the costs go up year on year. They're affected by currency exchange rates, and often the cost of databases and journals, in some cases, it's higher than inflation. So it's not an easy decision to take on new subscriptions. This is just an ongoing challenge in my job and lots of people's jobs. But then you're having to explain that to people, and people are usually understanding, but it's disappointing them.
Yeah, it definitely can be. It sounds like a lot of managing expectations, really, that's required in your job, whether that's around what you can get done in a day or a week or a year, whatever it is, and also around budgets and things as well. Yeah. And so I always like to ask my guests, if time and money were not an issue, because they so often come up as an issue, what would you like to do? What would you like to change? How would you take a magic wand to the area that you work in and make things better?
Well, I'd have double, triple, whatever the amount of staff.
Let's just assume that's a given. Yeah. What would you do with the money? Yeah.
Well, I would have a team of people in my area as liaison and support for business researchers. This is partly in order to be able to do all the things that we want to do, but also to enable career development for people. So I have a great colleague I work with, an assistant liaison librarian, and I think it would be great for us to have more people at different levels working and developing in their careers, because sometimes it's hard to find a role that allows you, as someone new to the area, to develop the skills you need to progress. So that's definitely something I would do. I think I would want to create the capacity for a lot more librarians who want to be involved in research, to be involved in research funded research. Obviously, we're talking about having a magic wand, but I think there's an argument for librarians being involved in the early stages in a large amount of research projects that go on in universities, collaborating with academic researchers, partly in terms of literature searching or information management, in terms of data collection, often in terms of reference management, because referencing is a huge amount of what we do as well. So yeah, creating capacity to do more things. And my dream is, one of my dreams, because I have loads of directions I'd like to go down, is to have an evidence synthesis service. So have like a specialist department where you've got librarians who are trained up in systematic reviews and meta-analysis of papers and other research, who are running training, providing guidance online, one-to-one support on evidence synthesis, and also who are working on their own research projects. So there's a whole research field within librarianship, but there's lots more we could do, and who are working on these projects with other academic researchers. So that's my little idea.
Oh, that sounds fab. And I can certainly see the importance of something like when you're talking about having people who are specialists in that evidence synthesis, because there's just more and more and more stuff out there all the time, isn't there? And I mean, certainly when I was more involved in research, just simply wading through all of that is a job in and of itself. So having a service like that could be really valuable.
And the fact that it takes a lot of time to do research. So I suppose my magic wand wouldn't just be for us in the library. I'm aware that there are so many academic researchers who most of their research, this is across the world, I suppose, most of their research gets done in their own personal time. And most people might have done sort of thorough literature reviews when they were doing their PhD, but they don't always have the time to do that now, much as they would like to. And they would value more time as well.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Sounds like a wonderful vision of the future. So we should think about drawing our conversation to a close. This has been so interesting for me because really an area that I didn't know a lot about before. Whereabouts can people find out more about you if they would like to get in touch?
So I'm quite active on Twitter still. My username is my full name, Alice Cann, Cann, and I'm on LinkedIn as my name. But also in the last year or so, while part of the Research Catalyst Cohort, I have set up a professional development blog, where I've been recording all of my learning and development, and that's researchlibrarian.wordpress.com, and there's links there to my university email address and my LinkedIn profile.
Fantastic. I will get links to all of those and put them in the show notes that people can come and find you. Well, it just remains then to say thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us and help me at least learn all about the kind of work of an academic liaison librarian.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thanks for listening to Research Adjacent. If you're listening in a podcast app, please check you're subscribed and then use the links under the episode to find full show notes and to follow the podcast on LinkedIn, Twitter or Instagram. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to the Research Adjacent Roundup newsletter. You can also find all the links and other episodes at www.researchadjacent.com. Research Adjacent is presented and produced by Sarah McCluskey, and you, yes you, get a big gold star for listening right to the end. See you next time.